Hello, fellow investor. It's Sunday, November the 23rd of 2025, early in the morning. And Meta Platforms has me pretty intrigued at this particular time because of the drastic sell-off that they've had in the last month or so since their last earnings. And I think they're getting to a nice price level where I entered into Meta Platforms last Thursday, so the 20th of November. And I want to run through just a few things this morning. We'll look at a few charts. We'll look at valuations. We'll look at FASTgraphs. We'll look at my purchases as I start to nibble in on Meta Platforms and where I intend to exit the trade if it doesn't work out. We'll also look at FASTgraphs and see how they value there, and we'll look at my trades in comparison to some that I've made in Microsoft and also Google. We'll also look at my trade strategies and how they've worked out for Google and Microsoft, and how I plan to manage the Meta trades. So Meta Platforms is the seventh largest company in the mega cap universe. Over the past year, they are trading pretty much exactly where they started the year. They've had a 1.49% gain year to date. When we look at a full year, they're up 5.08%. And when we look at 5 years, they're up 120.34%. And we look over their entire existence as a public company, they're up 1,313%. So they perform very well over their lifetime, but they're struggling a bit this year, especially with the concern about the CapEx spending that they're making for the AI build out. They are a $1.5 trillion company with a PE ratio of 26, a forward PE of 19. They do have a beta of 1.27. They do pay a small dividend yielding 0.35%. Their last dividend was on September the 22nd of 2025, so they'll probably announce a next dividend sometime in December. Also want to take a look at their financial KPIs. So this has to do with advertising revenue. And the interesting thing that I see here is they have grown advertising revenue in every year since 2018, with the exception of 2022. They had a slight drawdown in their advertising revenue, and since then that has reaccelerated. When we look at their revenue by geography, the same applies for the United States and Canada. They've grown every year with the exception of 2022. They had a small contraction. In Europe, it looks like they've grown pretty much every year with the exception of 2022. And in the Asia Pacific, the revenue has also, that's actually increased every single year. So they did not have a pullback in 2022 like they did in Europe and the United States. And then when we look at the rest of the world revenue, they've also had gains every single year. So I like that for Meta, that they're growing their ad revenue space pretty much year over year, with the exception of the small pullback in 2020. When we look at the forecast by the analysts, the price appears to be trading below even the low estimate of 645. And they have estimates as high as 1100 with an average of 820. So they do have an upside to that average of about 30 8%. I've calculated a blended value for them of $817, so I'm pretty close to what these analysts are saying. If we look at the top analysts, which excludes anyone with a 4+ or star rating or less, then we can see that they have a low value of 685 up to a high value of 980. So in both cases, they do appear to be somewhat undervalued at the moment. When we look at them in comparison to some of their mega cap peers, Meta does come in 7th place. They're surpassed by Broadcom, Amazon, Microsoft. Alphabet just moved into 3rd place. They were in 4th place until this past week, so they've exceeded Microsoft market cap. And then we find Apple at $4 trillion and Nvidia currently sitting at $4.3 trillion. So Meta's in good company here at a market cap of $1.5 trillion. I also wanted to, on this screen, just look at the PEG ratio in comparison to their two major peers, which is Google, which has a PEG ratio of 1.81. Microsoft is a little higher at 2.03, and Meta is 1.27. So from a PEG ratio point of view, Meta is also slightly undervalued compared to those two peers. So I'm going to start off looking at Meta Platforms in a 2-year daily price chart with some annotations. This top horizontal line here I have set to the peak value that they reached on February the 18th or the 19th, and I'm using that as somewhat of a resistance level. They also tested that in June 2 times. They surpassed it in August, came back down to test it, then surpassed it again in September. They broke through that line, reached above it once again right before their earnings, before this big sell-off. So I want to look for the next level of support, and this horizontal line finds 3 places of support in September, October, and November of 2024. It found a little bit of support in March of this year before the big sell-off in the tariff announcements, and it has since broke out above that in May, traveled quite a ways above that, but is now testing that level once again. So I think this is a good support level. If it does fail to hold here, the next level of support that I see is this second horizontal line, which was tested in April of 2024. It was tested again in July of 2024, then in August of 2024, and then it broke out above that, traded above that line for most of the time, but it did break down below that during the tariff announcement. So this is a secondary level that I would be looking for some major support for Meta. This first one is where I first decided to take a chance and enter into a Meta trade and monitor that and manage that and see how it goes. I do want to step down to 1 year. We can see that when they peaked out here in September of this year, they did not get above an RSI of 60. That was a bit concerning. They pulled back below the 40 RSI. They once again started driving a bit higher. They didn't reach the price levels that they reached in September, and the RSI also failed to get back above 60. So it pretty much lacked the momentum it needed to sustain these prices here, and somewhat served as a warning sign going into the earnings. And since their earnings and the concern about their spend, CapEx related to the AI build out, they have really sold off and are what I would consider very undersold at this point. So if we look at previous conditions here for both the RSI and the PPO, the first thing that we'll notice is the PPO, the longer term average, is starting to level out just a bit. And, that's the shorter term average. And the longer term average is still decreasing slightly. So I'm expecting this to cross over at this point very soon. And then if we scroll back to the previous time that it had a crossover of that nature, we were in the throes of the tariff announcements. We reached a low of 479, and we climbed up. Let's see what that percentage is. We climbed up about 62% after that crossover. The RSI had also crossed above a level of 50. So we're way below the RSI currently. We're currently in that oversold condition, but I am watching this PPO and getting a crossover there. I'm also noticing that we're starting to get a rise in the accumulation. So we had reached a pretty significant level of distribution, of basically a 52-week low, and we have started building off of that point. So that's another positive sign that we may be seeking a reversal on these price changes. So I want to put two additional lines on here. One is the blended price that I've calculated, and I also want to add my exit price, which is 576, and I'll tell you how I calculated that in just a moment. So I'm going to save this so we can see where the blended my price level is. It's 817. We saw that the stock analysis had them at 820, so I'm pretty close to where I think fair value is. We'll also take a look at Meta in FASTgraphs and see what FASTgraphs calculates as their fair value. Then I have this orange line setting at 576. And basically how I calculated that is I took the average true range for the last 10 days, and then I multiplied that number by 3, so it was 19 times 3, and then I took the high over that 10-day range and subtracted that average true range from that, and that gave me to 576. Normally I just use a chandelier exit calculation to give me that, but that's an average true range over 22 days, and 22 days would take us back into the price levels we saw here. So the exit price would be a lot higher than what the price is today. So I just modified my exit strategy just a bit, just to look at the last 10 days instead of the last 22 days. An average true range takes into effect the volatility that we're seeing in these daily trade volumes. Rather than selecting a specific value or a percentage of a loss, I just like to use these chandelier exits or a modified version of them. So if it drops below 576, I will exit my current trade. But what I'm going to do in between that is I am going to be adding if there are any pullbacks or any prices below where I actually have my average at the moment, then I will continue to add. If it drops below 575, I'll exit and await a price closer to this secondary support level that I see. A couple other charts I want to take a quick look at is a 5-year trend channel. So basically I just find a support line that connects as many lows as I can. So basically it connected 3 lows. Make a copy of that and drag it up and try to connect as many points as I can. And then I make another copy, make it a dotted line, and just kind of set it in the middle where I can get a view of how the trend has been over. This is actually probably a 2-year, 3-year period. It's not really 5 years. The one concerning point that I see here is you can see it traded mostly within this range over the last 3 years, but we have had a breakdown out of that trend channel. We also need to keep in mind this is a pretty short trend channel overall. But then we can look at the 15-year trend channel. Goes back to 2012, so we're looking at about 13 years actually. And you can see the same pretty much trend channel. It's only come down and touched this bottom line 2 times. It's touched this upper line 1, 2, 3, and then traveled right along that line for most of 2024. And then it's played up and above and just slightly below that line. So on the 15-year or 13-year, we're actually looking at like we're still trading at the top of a trend channel. So that's something that I'll be watching with this to see if it pulls back. And keep in mind, this is a really wide range from $150 up to nearing $800, $700 or so. We'll take a quick look at Meta Platforms, and we'll compare that to Microsoft and Google using FASTgraphs. We can see that Meta is trading at a blended PE of about 26 times. They have an EPS yield of 3.87 and a small dividend yield of 0.35. They have been growing their adjusted earnings over the past 13 years at 25.34% per year. FASTgraphs gives them a fair value ratio of 25.34 times, and the market normally applies a PE ratio of 28 times. That's indicated by the blue line, and the fair value ratio is represented by this orange line. We can see over this 13-year period that they've grown their earnings at a pretty high rate. They had a contraction in 2019, contraction in 2022, and a small contraction in 2025. They're expected to return to EPS growth of 30% for 2026 and 12% for 2027. So they're currently trading near their fair value, which is about $5.94, which is where they're currently trading. That's calculated by FASTgraphs. End of next year, they're expected to be at about $7.52 based on that growth rate and the fair value ratio. And in 2027, closer to $845. So FASTgraphs calculates their fair value to be slightly lower than what the analyst in stock analysis tool is providing, and slightly less than what I've calculated as a blended value, but they are currently trading below even their normal market multiple. So I think Meta is priced fairly here. And if we look at Microsoft, which is a good comparison, we can see that they are trading above both their market multiple and their fair value. And that was also indicated by a higher PEG ratio. And then if we look at Alphabet or Google, they were trading below their fair value back in April, May, and June. They have since traded above that, and they're even trading above their market multiple at the moment. So according to FASTgraphs, they're trading a bit higher than their fair value. I think Google's been on quite a run here lately and is looking very good as well. I'll show you some trades there that I've made. So we'll switch over and I'll show you my trades in Meta. I made my first purchase on Thursday. As I mentioned, I only spent about $1,000. So far, it's a little bit underwater. I have traded a few options in the past, and I've got a gain of about $59 on those options, which isn't too terribly much. So this is what I'll be tracking my Meta trades in. I like to maximize my gains and minimize my losses, and I'll show you how that works with Microsoft, which I've owned since December of 2020. The lines that are color-coded in this green color are those that I've closed out. The ones that are in white are the ones that are still open. So I've made a total investment in Microsoft of $131. I currently have an investment of just $12,000. It's worth $20,000 now, so got a 15.5% gain. I've collected dividends of 1%. Have lost some money on options that drew down my total return by about 3%. So my total return is 13.5% at the moment. My current return is closer to 67%, made a total of a little over $8,000. I've had a total of 37 trades. 7 of those are still open, 30 are closed. 30 have been winning trades and 7 have been losing trades. And on those 30 trades, I've made $19,000, and on my losses, I've limited those to $2,200. So that gives me a win rate of 82% on my trades, and the gain to loss ratio is 2.05 to 1. Then if we look at Google, which is a newer position, but I have purchased as many as 50 shares. I did close out one trade. It hit my stop loss, and I closed that particular position out. I currently have 45 shares. I'm up 82.7% on those shares. They paid out dividends of $27.30, so it's only 0.3% of my total return. So the total return is 62.7. I've made a total of 7 trades. I have 6 of those that are open. I started buying these on May the 9th when they were close to their tariff announcement lows. I think the business is very solid, and that was looking like a good price at that point, so I started growing my position at that point. So I've made a total of $5,800 on those 7 trades. 6 are open, 1 is closed, and I don't have a gain-loss ratio because I don't have any that are losing trades yet. So all of them are winning trades at this point. So while I'm not providing any investment advice here, this is just to show you what I'm doing and how I manage my trades. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on Meta. If you're entering into Meta, or whether you're growing your Meta position, whether you don't think it's a company to invest in, I would love to hear that. So please leave a comment and let me know how you're handling Meta platforms at this point. I wish you the best in your investment journey, and remember to trade well. Thank you.